So Claire, about to get into the start of the summer season. Here we are at your track. How's training going at the moment?
Yeah, good. I'm currently struggling a little bit of a niggle, so had to adapt a bit of training. But other than that, it's going really well. I'm doing a lot of swimming to make up for the lack of cycling. So I feel like I'm going back to my swimming days.
Cycling because of the knee?
Yeah, slight knee niggle, but hopefully next few weeks it's starting to build back up. But it's just that kind of having that mental resilience at that time when it's not going well, to kind of be able to look forward to the future and know that it will be okay. And this is where you have to do the groundwork in other areas.
It's one question that I really wanted to ask you is, obviously you come from a very successful swimming background and you're focusing on that the most at the moment for the time being, but how difficult is it to switch your focus from just religiously one sport or discipline then into three?
Yeah, it 100%, it was really challenging. I think going from being at the top of your game in one sport and then suddenly going into a completely different sport where you have to learn 3 different disciplines and then the 4th discipline of the transitions was really, really challenging. And I expected myself to be amazing straight away. I put so much pressure on myself to be the best because I kind of felt like, well, I've been there in that sport and everybody's going to expect me to just be able to transition really smoothly across. Yeah. So that was definitely really challenging, but I felt like in that first year, I probably learned so much more about myself than I probably had done in my whole swimming career. Because it was just massively pushing me outside my comfort zone. But it 100% the best decision I made. Like going from, following a black line for 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, double swimming for however many hours a week, to actually being able to go outside and be on the bike and go running. And, I'm a sociable person. I like chatting. And that's the best thing about triathlon is I can actually talk to people whilst I'm running and cycling. Whereas the swim I find still quite hard because you're underneath the water and there's not much chatting that can go on.
No. And when you were swimming, were you quite a keen runner cyclist in your free time, the little free time that you had anyway?
So when I was young, I did. I used to be part of an athletics club and I used to compete for my school in cross country and things like that. And I got to the age of probably about 14 and swimming kind of encouraged me to give up on those things and really focus on the swimming and put all my time and effort into that. Which definitely impacted me later on trying to run again because I was massively like a fish out of water. My joints and my bones were just not quite ready for that high impact. So it's something I probably regret not carrying it on just a little bit more. But I kind of, towards the end of my swimming career, I always knew that I was going to go to triathlon. I started to run a little bit more and I started to figure out like how I would ride the bike with my one arm. So yeah, it was always a sport I wanted to transition into, but I just didn't know quite how I was going to do it.
So you started your Paralympic career in Athens 2004, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah.
How excited were you when paratriathlon was included as a part of the Paralympic movement and included in the Games 2016? Rio was the first, wasn't it?
Yeah, so Rio was its debut. Yeah, I remember hearing that it was going to be included and super excited because it's such a fast-growing, fast-paced, really exciting sport. And I knew it was something that I wanted to do, but at the time that I wanted to do it, it wasn't involved in the Paralympics. So as soon as it was announced, I was like, right, I'll give it, one time to kind of get under...
Right, get it established, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. So almost be established in that one time Rio and then switch over after Rio, ready for Tokyo.
And what's the training like by comparison to swimming? You said that it's perhaps a bit more not physically demanding. I guess
so much more variety.
Yeah.
Like it's actually, it's great. It really is. And probably slightly less high intensity. You're focusing more as an endurance athlete, whereas I went from being a 1 minute 20 swimmer to an hour something race. It's a completely different energy system you're working. But I think I'm actually probably more suited to a triathlon than I was to actually being, a typical swimmer who I just couldn't produce muscle. I didn't probably have that real fast twitch.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had to change that over.
And your diet's changed and everything in line with that too.
Yeah, definitely. A lot more cake, which is good.
God, it's fascinating. You don't really think about that, do you?
Yeah.
From somebody who's looking outside, like I am, into the world, you just think, no, super high level elite athlete's diet would just transition from swimming. It'd be exactly the same.
Yeah, no, not at all. Because obviously, you're going out for such long slow rides rather than all the real high intensity stuff where you're burning a lot more calories, but in a completely different way in both sports. But I think it's even, you know, for me, when I was a swimmer, being a sprinter, I produced lactate so quickly. So coming into triathlon, you know, I would start that race and I'd go out like an absolute bat out of hell and just blow up, and my legs would just be like pooling full of lactate. And I've like, well, I've still got 59 minutes to go. Where do I have to go here? I'm absolutely burning. And it'd be that real learning of the skills and how the race dynamic works, which took quite a bit of time to kind of understand. So there's so many things that you think, would just be quite easily transferable over. But actually it's very different, and even the swim is completely different. Swimming in a pool to open water is a completely different concept.
That's fascinating. So working with your coach then, has he almost had to rein you back, or have you had to rein yourself back? Because obviously, as you say, it's an endurance event rather than a sprint.
Yes, I work with a female coach, actually, Bex Milnes. So yeah, she definitely has had to rein me back in at times, and we've had to really change what I'm naturally used to something that is completely out of the norm for me. And it was very much around the pacing side of things and just preparing to not go out on that first 100 metres of the swim and absolutely go all guns blazing. And actually, yeah.
Do you find the swimming in open water more exhausting on the body than in the controlled environment of a 50-metre pool?
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely more fatiguing. I find wearing a wetsuit, I hate it. It just feels so restricted. You know, being in a pool, you only wear like a small little costume. So I don't really enjoy wearing a wetsuit at all. But it's also, I think, it's quite overwhelming being in the open water, and you kind of that fear of me being a swimmer in a safe environment to being in open water. I'm scared of the sharks and the crocodiles and anything else that might be underneath me, which is absolutely ridiculous when you're swimming in a lake in England. But I still have that fear. So I think your heart rate automatically goes up, and your breath and everything. Yeah. That straight away you're kind of, you know, on overdrive, and that's getting everything going a bit too quickly sometimes.
It's so much more of a wild event, isn't it? There are so many more variables that can impact your race, like other swimmers getting in the way or whatever that, whatever there might be in the water.
Yeah, which makes it exciting, but it can be super frustrating at times, you know, that when, you know, I've had instances where my wetsuit like the zip broke and I was just stuck in my wetsuit, and I was like, how do I get out of this thing? And like almost acting as like Hulk to get out of it. You know, I've had people crash into the back of me. Tokyo having like time penalties. There's so much more that can go wrong, bike mechanical issues, that it does keep it exciting. But at the same time, you know, swimming is such a controlled event in such a controlled environment that it's you and the water, whereas triathlon, it's you and another million factors, and the only thing you can control is just trying to get from A to B as quickly as you possibly can without anything going wrong.
I love it. It's such a dynamic sport. It's brilliant to watch. I find it fascinating to watch, even more so. But anyway, right, Tokyo 2020 or 2021 as it were. So you've got a shorter cycle now between now and Paris. How has COVID affected what you're doing on a day-to-day basis in terms of training?
Yeah, I think that the COVID mainly affected in terms of being able to train with other people. I'm really lucky that my partner Dave, he is a triathlete too, so we can train together a lot of the time, although he is a lot faster than me. But it was just having that interaction with other people and being able to go out on the bike with people, go out running, and just being able to push each other in those training sessions. And now we're starting to open up a bit more. We can actually train back together. We can travel a bit more, go on training camps, all those kind of things. You know, I found being here over the winter really hard. I find training outside when it's cold and wet and dark, and just that lack of daylight, it really affects my mood. Really? So actually, I definitely found that really hard during COVID. And, you know, this year we've been away for 5.5 weeks, which really, really lucky to be able to do. And the effect it has on your mood is incredible. Yeah.
You were saying COVID was a benefit to the training then?
I think it was a bit of both. Like, obviously you didn't have the distractions, you didn't have the, you know, going away all the time and kind of being here, there and everywhere, going to visit people. So actually the rest and recovery, I was actually probably taking a lot better than I do now. I'm the kind of person that likes to do everything and says yes to everything. And sometimes it was quite good at reining me in. But I did find that balance hard. I found that, you know, I know one of my big values is going to see my family and going to see my friends and spend time with them.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do any of that. So I almost became quite obsessed by triathlon. And then I realised that had an effect on my mood as well. And I wasn't feeling as happy because I wasn't getting that outlet in other areas of my life, which I really enjoy.
You mentioned friends and family there, so we've got to mention that with Swansea, they'll be able to be there with you, supporting you on. How important is that?
Oh, it's incredible, especially as they missed Tokyo and they haven't really been able to come to any races for quite a while because of travel restrictions. So it'll be amazing that they can come down and see me race. And, you know, my nephews are all coming. They're all really little, but, you know, they've seen me on the TV and all those various things, and it would be really nice for them actually to see it in real life.
Do you think you'll perform better knowing that they're there? Because I guess if they're not there, you've got the extra added stress in the back of your mind that you're missing home, you wish that they would be there. There's all these distractions going on. But with them being there, it's kind of like, no, I know they're there. That's cool. I can just focus on what I need to do rather than have to worry about stuff that shouldn't have to be worrying about.
I think it's not necessarily that I'll perform better, but I think it'll be that added boost, that kind of cherry on the top. And not even just from my family and friends, but hopefully we're going to get a really good crowd. And the difference that makes is phenomenal. You know, racing last year in Leeds, you know, home event, and just the crowd could carry you home. And for me, I had a really tight race with the American girl, and it was literally down to the last 100 meters. And you know, it came down to a really fast sprint. And I just felt like I had that extra edge because the crowd were there and, you know, you could hear them cheering your name. And that really does make a difference.
Do you think of that key rival every time you train? You think, she's training today, I'm training today, I need to get up earlier? Because I've heard people say, who is it? There was a guy, I think he was Jock Willink. Anyway, he's not an elite athlete, but he's a high performer in sort of weightlifting or whatever. And he's like, right, I know that my rivals are getting up at 6 or whatever, so I need to get up at 5. I need to get up at 4 every single day just to be able to get the edge on them.
Well, I think that's the thing. People often say, well, what keeps you motivated when it's dark and it's cold and it's horrible outside? And it's definitely that. It's knowing that your rivals aren't going to be lying in bed feeling sorry for themselves, not wanting to get up, you know, I could stay and have a duvet day, and instead they're out there training. So you can either get yourself one step behind or you can keep up with the game. And, you know, I think it's just not about becoming complacent and always wanting to look for ways to be better. Yeah, and
never taking your foot off the gas, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that an easy thing to do when you finish a Paralympic cycle? Obviously, it's normally 4 years between, but we're pretty much just off the back of Tokyo 2020. Is it easy for you to take the foot off the gas in the 12 months after those games?
Yeah, so after Tokyo, I had quite a decent break. We had Europeans and World Championships, so we had to stay training for an extra 8 weeks, which was actually really, really tough. When it's been such an emotional roller coaster going into Tokyo, and then Tokyo is an emotional roller coaster, and then you have to come back and go straight into training. Those 8 weeks were really mentally very hard. But then after the race, the World Championships, I had a decent break, so I took, you know, six weeks completely away from the sport or just doing what I wanted. Yeah. So it was very much no structure to the training, go and see family, go see friends, go say yes to every kind of social activity and go on holiday, all that kind of stuff. And then when I wanted to come back, I was ready and I missed it. And I really wanted to come back and, you know, be full steam ahead again. So yeah, I think that for me is the most important thing, is just listening to your body and your mind, and it tells you when it needs that rest and it needs that time away from, because it's intense. Yeah. Particularly during COVID, it was even more intense than normal, because you weren't getting those regular breaks or going and seeing people, that you just put all your effort into triathlon.
It's amazing, isn't it? The training, commitment, discipline, motivation required on every single day, without break, is relentless. So I suppose having those 6 weeks off just gives you time to be able to stop and analyse. Am I doing what I still want to do?
Exactly.
Do I still have the hunger for this? And then, like you say, if you miss it, I want to go back. Then you know it's the right thing that you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you never want to be that kind of person that just keeps doing it because you don't know what else to do. You want to do it because you know you've got that burning desire inside of you, and you've still got that hunger. And I think that's the real key thing. And particularly after Paralympic Games, that's a really good time to actually reassess that. Obviously, you know, it is a much shorter cycle this year, so it probably does make it a lot easier for a lot of athletes to carry on. But yeah, it's super exciting that we're actually not that long away from Paris.
Mad, isn't it?
Crazy.
Absolutely mad. So Swansea coming up a lot sooner than that in August.
Exactly.
What are your expectations?
I'm so excited. I'm really excited to be racing on home soil. Like we said earlier, with a home crowd, I think that would just be absolutely phenomenal. And I think the fact that it's a World Series and it's a standalone para event is just, it's nothing that we've ever had before. And I think we're trying to put so much energy and time and effort into it being the world leading event. And, you know, I'm really lucky to be part of the board and, you know, have an input from an athlete's perspective on the event. And that kind of gets me really excited by it. And I just think hopefully we can set the precedence of what it's about and what paratriathlon's about and what we want the rest of the world to follow suit with. So yeah, to go out there and race and hopefully, you know, produce the best performance I can on that day and see what the outcome is. It's something that really excites me.
I love the para-triathletes. They're all so motivated to grow the sport. It seems like
Yeah.
winning the medals is important, but actually seeing our sport grow into I suppose giving it the world recognition that it deserves is like almost more important.
Well, I think when you're involved in it and you see how incredible it is, and it is still very much a new sport, and you know, a lot of people aren't aware of it and they aren't aware of the disabilities and the categories and all the kind of stuff and how they can get involved. And I just want to show people how amazing it is. And even if it's, you know, they get involved and race at a club level or whatever level they want to do, but just knowing that it's such an accessible, friendly community, and anybody is welcome, I think just makes the sport probably one of the most special sports I've ever been involved in.
Tokyo 2020 as a Paralympics, were they good games for you? They were pretty good, weren't they? Bronze medal.
Yeah, it was definitely quite a roller coaster. My boyfriend raced the day before me, and he unfortunately had to finish the race because his chain broke, which is not the nicest thing to happen when, you know, he was in absolutely incredible shape and wasn't able to produce the performance he deserved. So that was really tough, particularly the day before your race when you're kind of wanting to focus and concentrate on your race. And it very much, you know, you have to almost be quite selfish. And I had to support him, but then I had to step away and be like, right, now it's my time. I need to focus on what I'm doing and I have to be incredibly selfish. And that was really, really tough for me. And I found that really hard because when it's somebody you love and you're like, no, sorry, somebody else needs to deal with you now. Obviously, he wanted me to do that. He was fully, you know, aware of, come on, you've got a job to do. You go and do it. My race then, obviously, the next day, it was going really well, and then a bit of drama with penalties. You know, like we said earlier, triathlon is so unpredictable, and I managed to pick up a drafting penalty, which then, unfortunately, they didn't time it quite right, so I had to repeat it. So I ended up serving a penalty twice, which just meant that, you know, I was kind of out of the top two medals and fighting for those positions. So it was quite frustrating because I didn't feel like I got to show my true performance on that day. But then at the same time, I felt very grateful that I still managed to pick up that bronze medal, particularly with the fact that, you know, Dave didn't even get to finish the race. And also for Lauren to be on the top step and for me to be on the third step was brilliant, and still managed to get to sing my national anthem, which was brilliant. Just, you know, it would have been nice. Next time I'd like to do it for myself as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it gives you a hunger though, doesn't it? For the next time out in Paris.
Exactly. No, it definitely does. And it was definitely a bittersweet experience, you know, and my first Paralympics as a triathlete to still pick up that bronze medal was phenomenal.
What did you get your MBE for?
So I got my MBE after Rio for what was the title? Sport of swimming.
It's in recognition
of your services to swimming. So I'd like to think it was for all the outside work I've done, you know, aside from swimming, going and inspiring children to get
I was
involved in
going to ask
sport.
about that. Is it more like your performances in the pool or what you do outside of the pool in terms of motivating and inspiring other people to get involved?
I think it is mainly to do with your performance in the pool and winning the gold medal. But I kind of hope to think that the other stuff, the extra curricular stuff in a sense, and the things that you're doing outside of the pool actually are involved in that. Because I think, you know, the medal that we win is our reward and is our prize, and the MBE is recognising what we've done to inspire a next generation of athletes coming through.
Well, Claire, we've run out of time, but it's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Sorry for chatting away.
No, it's all right. It's been quite fun.